What happens when one of the most famous women in the world sits down for what should be a simple morning interview, only to completely lose her composure on live television? In just 34 seconds, a cheerful conversation turned into chaos. Cameras captured every uncomfortable moment, and an entire nation watched as Meghan Markle was escorted off the Good Morning America set. This is the story of the morning that shocked everyone. It started like any other Tuesday morning. The lights were bright in the Good Morning America studio. The cameras were ready. Lara Spencer sat in her chair, smiling at the audience. She had her notes prepared. She had done hundreds of interviews before. This one was supposed to be easy. Meghan Markle was there to talk about her new charity project. Something about helping children read books. It sounded nice. It sounded simple. Everything seemed normal. Lara welcomed Meghan with a warm smile. The audience clapped. Meghan sat down and adjusted her microphone. She smoothed her dress. She looked at the cameras. Lara began with a friendly question. "Welcome to Good Morning America, Meghan. We're so glad to have you here. Tell us about this wonderful literacy program you've been working on." Meghan smiled. But it was not a real smile. It was the kind of smile people use when they are pretending to be happy. She cleared her throat. "Well, Lara, I think what's most important here is that people understand the depth of what we're trying to accomplish. This isn't just about books. It's about changing the entire system of how children learn to value themselves through literature." Lara nodded. She kept her smile bright. She looked at her notes. "That sounds lovely. And I understand you've partnered with several libraries across the country. How has that been going?" Meghan shifted in her seat. Her smile got tighter. She tilted her head. "I think you're missing the point, Lara. Libraries are just the beginning. We need to talk about the real issues, the systemic problems, the way society has failed these children. But I wouldn't expect everyone to understand that level of complexity." The audience got quiet. Lara blinked. She kept her professional face on. She had been doing this job for years. She knew how to handle difficult guests. She tried a different approach. "Of course. So let's dive into those details. What specific changes are you hoping to see in the next year?" Meghan laughed. But it was not a nice laugh. It was sharp, cold. She looked directly at Lara. "You really don't get it, do you? This isn't about timelines and metrics. This is about humanity. But I suppose when you're sitting in your comfortable studio chair, making millions to ask softball questions, you wouldn't understand what real work looks like." The room went silent, completely silent. The camera operators looked at each other. The producers in the control room froze. Lara's smile finally dropped. She took a slow breath. Her voice stayed calm, professional. "Meghan, I'm here to give you a platform to share your message. I think our viewers would love to hear more about the actual program, rather than—" Meghan cut her off. Her voice got louder. "Rather than what? Rather than calling out the obvious? You invited me here, Lara. You begged my team for this interview. And now you sit there with your scripted questions, like you're doing me some kind of favor. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've sacrificed?" Lara put her cards down on the desk. She looked straight at Meghan. Her voice was still calm, but there was something firm in it now. Something strong. "Meghan, I understand you're passionate about your work, but this interview was scheduled to discuss your literacy program. If you'd like to have a different conversation, we can arrange that. But right now, let's focus on why you're here." Meghan's face turned red. She leaned forward. Her finger pointed at Lara. "Don't you dare tell me what to focus on. You have no idea what it's like to be scrutinized every single day. To have people like you tear you down with a smile on their face. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the problem with people like you, Lara." "People like me?" Lara asked. Her eyebrows went up. She stayed in her seat, calm, steady. "Yes, People who pretend to care. People who ask fake questions. People who have never had to fight for anything real in their entire lives. The audience gasped. Some people whispered to each other. Lara glanced at the camera, then back at Meghan. She spoke slowly, carefully. Meghan, I think we need to take a quick break. Perhaps we can reset and... No breaks. I'm not done. You invited me here to humiliate me, didn't you? To ask your little questions designed to make me look bad. Well, it's not going to work. I see right through you. I see through all of you. Meghan stood up. Her microphone made a loud sound. She ripped it off her dress. She threw it on the floor. Lara remained seated, her hands folded in her lap. Her face showed concern, but she did not raise her voice. Meghan, please sit down. Let's talk about this. Talk? You want to talk? You wouldn't know how to have a real conversation if your life depended on it. Everything about this is fake. Your smile is fake. Your concern is fake. This whole show is fake. People in the audience looked uncomfortable. Some looked at their phones. Some looked at the floor. The producers were talking quickly in the control room. One of them spoke into Lara's earpiece. Lara listened, then spoke again to Meghan. I'm sorry you feel that way, but I need to ask you to please respect our studio and our audience. If you'd like to continue this conversation in a respectful manner, I'm happy to do so. If not, we'll need to end the interview. Meghan laughed again. That same cold laugh. She turned to look at the audience. You're all sitting there watching this. You're all part of the problem too, coming here to watch them parade. People around like trained animals. You should be ashamed of yourselves. The audience members looked shocked. Some shook their heads. Lara stood up now. She kept her distance from Meghan, but her voice was firm. Meghan, that's enough. You need to stop right now. Or what? You'll have security remove me? Go ahead. Show everyone who you really are. Show them how you treat people who speak the truth. I dare you. Lara looked at someone off camera. She nodded. 2 security guards appeared from the side of the stage. They walked slowly toward Meghan. Their faces were serious, but not angry. Professional. Ma'am, we need you to come with us, one guard said quietly. Meghan turned to look at them. Her eyes were wide. Don't you touch me. Do you know who I am? I am royalty. You can't treat me like this. The guards did not touch her. They just stood there, waiting. One of them gestured toward the exit. Please, ma'am, this way. Meghan looked around the studio. She looked at Lara, at the audience, at the cameras. Her breathing was fast. Her hands were shaking. She grabbed her purse from beside the chair. Fine, I'm leaving. But everyone will hear about this. Everyone will know what happened here today. You haven't heard the last of me, Lara Spencer. She started walking toward the exit. The security guards followed at a respectful distance. She turned around one more time, pointed at Lara. You think you've won? You think this makes you look good? People will see through you, just like they saw through all the others. Lara did not respond. She just stood there, watching, calm. The guards gently guided Meghan through the studio doors. The doors closed. The studio was silent for a moment. Then Lara turned to the camera. She took a breath. Her voice was steady. Well, that was certainly unexpected. We apologize to our viewers for what just happened. We invite guests here to have respectful conversations, and we're disappointed when those conversations take an unfortunate turn. We'll be right back after this break. The cameras cut away. The audience sat in stunned silence. Lara sat back down in her chair. She looked at her producer, who was walking onto the set. He put his hand on her shoulder. You handled that perfectly, he said quietly. Lara nodded. She looked tired, but she was professional until the very end. She picked up her cards. She looked at them. The next segment was about a cooking demonstration. Something light, something easy, something normal. The makeup artist came over to touch up her face before the cameras came back on. Lara sat still. She let the woman work. Someone brought her water. She took a small sip. The audience members were talking to each other, whispering, looking at their phones, taking pictures, recording videos. This was going to be everywhere in minutes. 30 seconds, someone called out. Lara straightened her jacket. She put on her smile again. The real professional smile. The one she had perfected over years of doing this job. The lights got brighter. The cameras moved into position. And we're back in 5, 4, 3. The red light on the camera turned on. Lara looked right at it. Her smile was warm, welcoming, like nothing had happened at all. Welcome back to Good Morning America. Up next, Chef Marcus is here to show us how to make the perfect summer salad. It's fresh, it's delicious, and it's so easy even I can make it. The audience laughed, a small, polite laugh. The tension started to ease. The chef walked onto the set with his ingredients. He smiled at Lara. She smiled back. They started talking about tomatoes, about cucumbers, about dressing, normal things, easy things, safe things. But backstage, in the hallway, Meghan was still arguing with the security guards. Her voice carried through the walls. The producers closed the door to the studio. They turned up the microphones on the chef. They kept the show moving. They were professionals. This was live television. The show must go on. What had started as a simple interview about a charity program had turned into something completely different. Lara had invited Meghan to talk about books, about children, about helping people learn to read. Instead, she got accusations, insults, a guest who lost control on live television. Throughout the entire exchange, Lara had remained calm. She had tried to redirect. She had tried to keep things professional. She had given Meghan multiple chances to reset the conversation. She had been patient, kind, respectful, even when Meghan was none of those things. When Meghan accused her of being fake, Lara did not get defensive. When Meghan insulted her job, her questions, her entire life, Lara kept her composure. When Meghan turned on the audience, calling them part of the problem, Lara stepped in, firmly but professionally. She had tried talking. She had tried reasoning. She had tried giving space. Nothing worked. Only then, only after every other option was exhausted, did she signal for security. And even then, she did it quietly, with dignity, without drama. The security guards had been gentle. They had not grabbed Meghan. They had not forced her. They had simply asked her to leave, given her a clear path, respected her space. But Meghan had made it dramatic anyway, yelling about royalty, about being touched, about being mistreated. None of it was true, but she said it anyway. And through it all, Lara had stood there, watching, waiting for it to be over, not engaging, not fighting back, just letting Meghan leave. Then she had apologized to the viewers, taken responsibility for the uncomfortable situation, even though it was not her fault, even though she had done nothing wrong. That is what a professional does. That is what someone with experience does. Someone who has handled difficult situations before. Someone who knows that staying calm is more powerful than fighting back. Someone who understands that the audience can see who is being reasonable and who is not. Meghan had walked into that studio thinking she was in control, thinking she could say whatever she wanted, thinking her fame would protect her from consequences. She was wrong. Fame does not give anyone the right to be cruel, to insult people who are trying to help, to attack an audience that came to support you. The cameras had captured everything, every eye roll, every pointed finger, every raised voice, every insult. The footage would be played again and again. People would watch it. They would form their own opinions. They would see who stayed calm and who did not, who was respectful and who was not, who acted like a professional, and who acted like someone who thought they were above the rules. In the control room, the director was already making calls. Legal was being contacted. Public relations was being alerted. Statements would need to be prepared. Decisions would need to be made about whether to air the full footage or edit it down, whether to address it in the next show or let it speak for itself. But Lara was not thinking about any of that. She was focused on the chef, on the salad, on getting through the rest of the show, on doing her job, because that is what she does, every single day. She shows up, she prepares, she asks questions, she listens, she treats her guests with respect, she gives them a platform to share their message. And when a guest decides to throw that opportunity away, when they decide to use that platform to attack instead of inform, when they choose drama over dialogue, Lara does what she has to do. She tries to redirect. She tries to salvage it. She gives multiple chances. And when none of that works, she ends it. Professionally, respectfully, firmly. That is leadership. That is grace under pressure. That is what decades of experience looks like. Not yelling, not insulting, not throwing microphones. Just steady, calm, professional behavior. Even when the person across from you is being the complete opposite. The chef finished his demonstration. The audience clapped. Lara thanked him. The camera cut to commercial. Lara stood up and shook the chef's hand. She smiled. She made small talk. She was kind to him even though her morning had just been completely derailed by an out-of-control guest. Someone from the crew asked if she was okay. Lara nodded, said she was fine. Because she was fine. This was not the first difficult interview she had done. It would not be the last. She had handled politicians who dodged questions, celebrities who showed up drunk, authors who could not stay on topic, athletes who were rude to the crew. She had seen it all, and she had handled it all with the same calm, professional approach. Because that is her job. That is what she is good at. That is why she has been doing this for so long. She does not need to yell to be heard. She does not need to insult to make a point. She just needs to be herself, professional, prepared, respectful. Meanwhile, outside the building, Meghan was getting into a car. Her face was still red. She was talking on her phone, probably to her publicist, probably trying to spin what had just happened, probably trying to make herself look like the victim, like she had been attacked, ambushed, treated unfairly. But the cameras do not lie. The footage shows exactly what happened. It shows who asked reasonable questions and who responded with unreasonable attacks. It shows who tried to de-escalate and who chose to escalate. It shows who acted with dignity and who did not. Back in the studio, the show continued. Weather, traffic, a feature about a dog who saved a family from a fire. Normal morning television, the kind of content people turn on to start their day with something positive, something interesting, something that makes them smile. That is what Good Morning America is supposed to be. That is what Lara Spencer works to create every single day. A show where people can learn something, be entertained, see interesting guests talk about their work, their passions, their causes. Meghan had been invited to do exactly that, to talk about her literacy program, to share her vision for helping children, to inspire viewers to get involved, to make a difference. That was the opportunity she had been given. That was the platform she had been offered. Instead, she had used it to complain, to attack, to accuse, to insult. Not just Lara, but the entire audience. People who had taken time out of their morning to come see the show. People who had been excited to see her, to hear what she had to say. People who wanted to support her cause. She had turned on all of them, called them part of the problem, told them they should be ashamed. For what? For being there? For wanting to watch the show? For being interested in her work? It made no sense. It was cruel. It was unnecessary. And Lara had protected them. When Meghan started attacking the audience, Lara had stepped in, had told her to stop, had defended the people sitting in those chairs, the people who had done nothing wrong, who had just come to watch a morning show. That is what a good host does. Protects their audience, protects their show, sets boundaries when guests cross lines, does not allow anyone, no matter how famous, to turn their platform into a place for attacking innocent people. The final segment of the show was about an upcoming concert in Central Park. Free for everyone. Family friendly. Something fun to look forward to. Lara talked about it with genuine enthusiasm. Reminded viewers to get there early, to bring blankets, to enjoy the music. That's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow morning. The music played, the credits rolled, the cameras pulled back. The show was over. Lara unclipped her microphone. She stood up, stretched. Another day, another show, another challenge handled with professionalism and grace. The audience filed out slowly, still talking about what they had witnessed, still processing it. Some were recording videos for their social media. Some were calling friends. Everyone had a story to tell now. They had seen something dramatic, something unexpected, something that would be talked about for days. But more importantly, they had seen how to handle a difficult situation. They had watched Lara remain calm when someone was screaming at her, stay respectful when someone was being disrespectful, keep her dignity when someone was losing theirs. That is the real story. Not that a celebrity had a meltdown. That happens. People lose their temper. They say things they should not say. They act in ways they should not act. That is unfortunate, but it happens. The real story is how Lara handled it. How she did not take the bait. How she did not fight back. How she kept trying to bring the conversation back to what it was supposed to be about. How she gave Meghan multiple opportunities to reset. How she only called security as a last resort. How she did it all without raising her voice or losing her composure. That is the lesson. That is what people should remember. Not the drama, not the yelling, not the insults, but the way one person stayed professional while another person fell apart. The way experience and maturity look when tested. The way a real professional handles pressure. Lara walked back to her dressing room. She closed the door, sat down, took a deep breath, let it out slowly. Then she picked up her phone, started looking at the schedule for tomorrow's show, because that is what she does. She moves forward. She does not dwell. She does not spiral. She just keeps doing her job. The next morning, the internet was full of clips from the interview. The moment Meghan pointed at Lara. The moment she ripped off her microphone. The moment she yelled at the audience. The moment security escorted her out. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. Some people defended Meghan. Said she must have been having a bad day. Said Lara must have done something to provoke her. But most people saw it for what it was. A guest who came on a show and acted inappropriately. A host who handled it professionally. A situation that could have been simple, but became complicated because one person could not control themselves. That is what happens when you lose control. When you let your emotions take over. When you think being famous means you can treat people however you want. When you forget that respect is a two-way street. When you believe your own importance so much that you forget basic manners. Meghan had walked into that studio with an opportunity, a chance to talk about something she cared about, a platform to reach millions of people, support from a respected show and a professional host. All she had to do was have a normal conversation, answer some questions, share her vision, be pleasant, but she could not do it, or would not do it. Either way, the result was the same: a disaster, an embarrassment, a moment that would follow her, a moment where she showed the world exactly who she was when things did not go the way she wanted, when she was not in complete control, when someone asked her questions instead of just praising her. And Lara, she showed the world who she was too. Someone who stays calm in chaos. Someone who maintains professionalism even when the person across from her does not. Someone who tries to fix problems instead of creating them. Someone who protects her audience and her show. Someone who knows that keeping your dignity is more important than winning an argument. In the end, that is what people will remember. Not the specific words that were said, not the exact details of who said what, but the overall picture. One person acting entitled and out of control. Another person acting professional and in control. One person making a scene. Another person trying to prevent a scene. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Bright lights, ready cameras, a host prepared to do her job, a guest invited to share their message. It should have been simple, easy, pleasant. Instead, it became a moment that shocked the nation. A moment that showed what happens when someone thinks they are above basic courtesy. A moment that proved fame and titles do not excuse bad behavior. And in just 34 seconds, from the moment Meghan first insulted Lara's questions to the moment security was called, everything changed. A charity event became a controversy. A simple interview became a spectacle. A pleasant morning show became must-see television. But through it all, one person remained exactly who they had always been: professional, prepared, respectful, patient. That person was Lara Spencer. And that is why, when the dust settled and people looked back at what happened, they could see clearly who handled themselves well and who did not, who stayed in control and who lost it, who acted like a professional and who acted like someone who had forgotten what professionalism means.